Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and I garden in zone 9B. My garden is northeast facing and I also have clay soil. In this video I'm going to be talking about winter 2024 because on this channel I've been documenting my gardening journey. I started gardening back in 2021 and if you'd like to see that, the videos are on the channel already. So going back to winter 2024, winter is typically the quietest month for me anyway as a home gardener. However, I still had quite a few things going on, which was quite interesting. To start off with, I'll talk about my garlic. So this was the third attempt. This was my third attempt of growing garlic. I'd attempted 2 times before. However, I had planted the garlic in a container and I put it close to my house where it's mostly shade. Garlic requires a sunny position, so we're talking about 8 hours of sun. I get the most sun at the back of the garden. So on the 5th of November, I planted some soft neck and some elephant garlic. And as you can see, it was all coming up. I was so excited. I cannot even describe the joy because, as I said, it was my third attempt. So, in terms of maintaining the garlic, I didn't have to do anything because my garden is in England and the winters can be wet sometimes. So, I didn't have to do any watering. I didn't really have to do any weeding because most of the weeds are dormant in the winter time. So yes, it was just a matter of just watching my garlic in awe and basically calling myself a master gardener. Just to mention, garlic requires a period of cold temperatures. So if your area does not get much cold temperature, it's worth doing some research to see how you can grow the garlic. I have heard of people who put the bulbs in the refrigerator before planting them out, but I do not know much about the process, but it's worth, I just thought I would mention it just in case you are gardening in a warmer zone. In addition to the garlic, I also had some onions that were growing. There were only about 8 of them, but they were growing well throughout the season. I had some seedlings as well. I had sowed some ox-eyed daisies. I had overdone it because the seeds are so tiny, but anyway, they are the ones in the 2 containers. I ended up using some of them, but you'll see that in the spring video. I also had my ranunculus, which I'd left in a container the previous year, and they were coming along nicely. And again, you see them blooming in the spring season. Winter is also a good season to plant some roses, and I ordered a replacement rose. So I had a wonderful rose. I think it was called the Mayro rose, and it was just stunning. However, I had decided to replant it because I had noticed that the graft was way above the ground. It's actually meant to be at least an inch below the ground, but mine was above. Additionally, it wasn't doing well because it was getting black spot and it just looked poorly towards the end. However, when I replanted it, it did not survive, so I had to buy a different rose. So I bought the Gertrude Jekyll rose and I planted that. All I'll say about the process of planting the rose is that it was a job and a half because, as I mentioned earlier, I've got clay soil. And when planting roses, particularly this rose, I had to dig a hole that was a bit bigger. Yeah, I remember it being a job and a half, and I took several breaks. But yes, I planted my rose, and you see it in the spring and upcoming seasons. I had a lot of joy in seeing my hosta, which I had divided back in autumn, start growing again. So I went from 1 hosta to 4 hostas and I was beyond happy. This was partly because it was my first time dividing any plant. I did do some research, so I was really happy in the end to see that dividing the hosta had been successful. Speaking of experiments, I had also stored some dahlia tubers in some shredded paper, and again They came out well. I think all in all, I might have lost one or two, but the others were absolutely fine. For those wondering, not that I'm recommending it, it might have been beginner's luck, but I essentially took the tubers after they were dry and I put them in shredded paper and I stored them under my stairs. And yes, they came out well. I planted the dahlias in March, and you see how they grew in the spring video. I also did some seed sowing. I sowed some kale, some collards, some mums, geraniums, and some sweet peas. It was my first time sowing most of these, apart from the kale, I want to say. The kale I had sowed before, and it had been a success when I sowed it. A quick mention goes to the geranium seeds. I think I sowed them on the 8th of March, and by the 12th of March, they were already germinating. Always seeing seeds germinating into little seedlings is always a wonder to see, and I was really excited to see them growing after such a short time. I also did some further seed sowing. This was now for vegetables. I did this on the 30th of March. I sowed some tomatoes, some cucumbers, some pumpkins, beans, peas, sweet corn, and some radish. My mystery plant, which was a self-seeder and I suspect a gift from the birds, it was growing well. It was actually evergreen, which was good to see. For those not aware, I had gone to my nursery after I saw this mystery plant growing because I didn't know what it was and I didn't know whether it was invasive or not. My nursery at the time had asked me to wait for berries or flowers so that it was easier to identify the plant. They did warn me though that should it start spreading quickly or growing rapidly, I should consider taking it out or going back to them for further advice. So in this particular picture, you will see that it was growing and it was evergreen. Before I move on to what was blooming in the garden, I just wanted to highlight a few other things that I bought. I bought two dahlia tubers, and I'll put the name on the screen. I also bought a flat top garden arbor or arch for the garden. This was also my third time attempting to buy this arch. Well, it's not really an arch, is it? But anyway, this arbor for the garden. I wanted an arbor or an arch for the garden so that I could have a bit of structure, particularly in the winter. That's another thing when it comes to the winter. You really get to see what's in your garden. And the recommendation is usually to have some evergreens which will have their foliage throughout the year, as well as some other plants that may lose their leaves in the year. But I was really looking at mine in my garden at the time and noting that I didn't really have much structure. So I hoped getting the arbor would be really good in creating some structure and adding some height in the garden. So as I mentioned, it was my third attempt. The first time it had arrived with some missing parts, so I had sent it back. The second time it actually broke when I was assembling it. I probably should have sent it back because I think it was a manufacturing issue, but never mind, I did not. So this was the third one, and you will see it in the spring season. And now moving on to the blooms. Since 2023, I challenged myself to have blooms throughout the year. And in winter, particularly, I usually have primroses and violas. And towards the end of winter, I usually have some flowers from the blueberries. Also, the azaleas usually start to flower. You start seeing the pinky color towards the end of March. So yes, I had them, the primroses, the violas, and the blueberries flowering in winter 2024. I had also had some hellebores in 2023, but unfortunately they did not make it for 2024. That is a wrap on the 2024 winter season. I will see you probably in another year. in terms of how long it takes me to record and to edit. No, but seriously, I aim to post the next installment, which is spring 2024, within the next few weeks. But thank you all for watching and have a lovely day. Take care. Bye.